Hello, everybody. It's time to channel your inner meerkat, isn't it, Tom?
Indeed, yes.
It's great to be here. Can't actually see everybody. The lights
Bright, isn't it?
in our eyes. But Tom, a very warm welcome to the stage.
Thank you for having me.
And it's great to have you here. And it's both our first Seichō, isn't it?
It is, yes, indeed.
And listen, thank you for making the time today, because I know we're all busy, but you're particularly busy, and you've hot-footed it down from Peterborough, your head office, to be with us this afternoon. But listen, before we get into it, and I introduce you properly, there are a couple of things that I wanted to share with you all, just to set a little bit of context. Many of us compare the market for a very famous meerkat, and making the nation smile quite a lot, actually. And most recently, my personal favourite. I imagine for you, if I asked you what your favourite ad was, it's a bit like having to choose your favourite child, which you'd never do. But I get the privilege of actually saying which my favourite ad is. It's where we see Sergey with the backdrop of the Tony Bennett It's a Good Life track, which is fantastic, by the way, diving into a swimming pool, apparently naked. It's pixelated, but I think we get the scene. But very memorable. But behind the humour, in all seriousness, sits a bigger challenge, and that's how you grow a brand in a platform world where increasingly convenience beats loyalty. Algorithms, we've talked about a lot about that today, shape choice. And customers expect things to feel simple, when in fact everything underpinning that is anything but. Over the past few years, Compare the Market, you and your team have been navigating a fundamental shift from being a brilliantly famous brand to also now, importantly, a genuinely experience-led business, rethinking how customer experience data and partnerships come together to drive growth at scale. At the end of last year, some of the work we do with you, we do together, was recognised with no less than 4 gold DMAs, as well as a Grand Prix shortlist. We lost just at the last moment, but to be up there was an amazing achievement, which said a huge amount about the work, and more importantly, the effectiveness of the work, which saw us through all those entries evolving Auto Sergey from not being just the character that we all know and love, but now a real intelligent service for millions of customers every year. But today isn't about wolves or meerkats. It's about what we've touched on earlier, modern brand growth, and what it actually takes in a highly complex, platform-driven world to achieve that growth. So with that in mind, I'm delighted to officially welcome you, Tom, as Chief Customer Officer at Compare the Market, and you've been leading the transformation with the team over there for the past 3 years. And I think you said to me just now, it's actually your 3-year anniversary this week.
It is indeed, yes, Friday.
You've seen a lot of change.
Yeah.
But prior to Compare the Market, you led growth and digital transformation for some of the UK's most ambitious consumer businesses, from scaling Now TV at Sky to a number of senior roles at OVO Energy and Gusto, where you very successfully brought together performance, brand, and customer thinking, and arguably well ahead of the curve. You could argue even, or I would argue, perhaps a trailblazer. Given your breadth of experience, the perfect place to start, obviously, is with you and how your journey shaped your approach to growth and customer connection. So my first question to you, Tom, is quite simply, do you still love your job as much as you did when you joined 3 years ago?
That's a great first question. What an icebreaker. Indeed, I do. I love it. I am very privileged and blessed to be able to say that every day that I go to work, I'm excited about what that day is going to bring, really because it's so varied. I think the industry, marketing in particular, has got so many different disciplines, and being in the position I am means that I get to see one of these every single day and work with lots of interesting people, lots of interesting agencies, and have a lot of variety, solve difficult customer problems. I find it really, really exciting. So I'm really glad that I moved from my background starting in engineering into the sort of dynamic, creative and data-driven space that marketing is now. So yeah,
it's curious when you first started out with engineering background, you would have thought creative industry was complete opposite. But
I always fancied a bit of creativity in my life, and then found marketing when I was at Sky, and that was the perfect blend.
Indeed, but you like change, clearly, and complexity and the challenge of complexity.
Yeah, absolutely. Solving difficult problems that people are struggling with is where you find advantage, and I really enjoy doing that.
Absolutely. And over the last 12 months, you've seen a lot of change, as we all have. But your role has considerably grown. You're not just responsible now for brand, but also customer and performance marketing. So given the increased complexity, it's a big theme of today, change and complexity in the world we all live in. With all that to look after, I'm interested to know how you focus your time. There's a lot on your list to do on a daily basis, I imagine.
Yeah, well, for me, and there's lots of different ways of doing it, but for me personally, I try not to do it all, right? I try not to get into the detail of everything. That's really, really hard. And so focusing on the things that only I can do, that I can help the teams with, setting context or giving context, setting direction, helping people understand what it is that they're doing and where it fits in. So this morning I just came from my all-hands team meeting, 100 people, and I was telling them about how we're setting next year's budget, which is not something we'd normally talk about, and seeing how we start with maximizing what we can get from customer marketing, optimizing our SEO, being profit optimal in our paid search, then investing into brand. That helps people understand how it all fits in. So I generally try to just do the things that I can do, help people understand where it all fits together.
I really like the thought that you should focus only on those things that only you can do. I think I should subscribe to that. Are you a recovering control freak, like me?
No. If interesting, I never have been, and there's all different ways of doing it. But what motivates me and gives me satisfaction is seeing other people be successful and helping other people be successful. So that's the way that I run my teams. Like, I want to help you do this, and I want you to do it, so I can do these kind of things, basically.
Absolutely. An enabler, yes. And so from focusing your time to what keeps you awake at night, I was recently reminded of an AAR ISBAR Evolution of Marketing Ops survey they ran. I think they ran it every year, but this was the one from last year. And one of the many questions they asked was, what keeps marketeers awake at night? The number one answer was proving value, marketing's value to the board. So Tom, I know we touched on this before, that obviously that resonates with you, but tell me, is that what keeps you awake at night?
So it's not the thing that keeps me up awake at night. It's part of the job, really, and one that I sort of breathe heavily when that time of year comes around. Budget setting for us, it's now going through justifying spend once again, but that sort of you do it enough times, it becomes like the annual cycle. The things that keep me up at night, I guess, are that feeling you get when you're doing something different, you're doing a new campaign, you're trying to do something you haven't done before, and knowing that it might not work. So if you know it's going to work, then it's obviously not pushing boundaries enough. So that sort of pit of the stomach, you've publicly committed to the board or to your peers of this new strategy, wondering whether it's going to work or not is what sort of perhaps keeps me up at night. And I think the second thing is, and I didn't want to talk too much about it, but the rapid change that we're seeing in the tools that are available to us through AI. It's now, it's hit, engineering and coding. Clearly, it's now moving up the stream towards product, marketing, and so on. That's coming at me and my teams, and the impact that it's having on them, and they're helping them through change, through a sort of grief curve to some extent, keeps me up a little bit as well. Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, indeed. And I can imagine that, because we can't possibly get through this session without at least touching on AI, that probably keeps you awake at night, perhaps for many different reasons. And we could chat about that probably for well into the evening. But we spoke yesterday about your two young boys, a slight aside, and their increasing use of not least ChatGPT and its voice function in their mission, I think it was, and they're aged 6 and 10, to convince you that you really need to get a pet snake.
That's right. Yeah. So the voice function, I gave it to them because they were just asking me too many questions. Ask ChatGPT. And when I looked at the logs afterwards, it was like, how long does it take to bond with a ball python? How long do they live for? What do they eat? What do you need? And it's like, how do I convince my dad to get me a snake? That was quite funny.
I bet you didn't expect snakes to come on the agenda today, did you? But in all seriousness, when it comes to the day job, I'm a firm believer in human augmentation, easy to say, versus the replacement. You might argue I would say that, but I genuinely believe there's a place for both. I'm interested to know where you sit on that, and perhaps more importantly, the positive impact you see that having on your team.
Yeah, so I'm in the same place as you. I think that it's really easy to sort of say as a marketer, oh, this is great. We can use all this stuff to keep selling people more stuff they don't necessarily always need even. And you can very quickly lose that sort of human touch, human connection, which is ultimately why we're all here. So I think, absolutely, adding that human touch on top of what it's enabling to do is really, really key. The fact that it almost sort of democratizes capability in a way, which is what we're sort of finding at Compare the Market. It's in good ways, across the team, but in challenging ways as well. So as everybody in this room is probably aware, everyone feels like they can be a marketer at the best of times. When you've got tools that you can start asking marketing questions to and giving answers to, means that challenge becomes even stronger. So we get a lot of people now sending me their points of view on SEO or CRM.
Even your CEO, who insists on bringing you hourly AI outputs related to your marketing strategy, I think.
So we need to get ahead of that curve, really. Yeah. And now with my teams, I've started to say things that you produce, where you might normally write a strategy and then share it or whatever, expose how you've used AI in building that and refining it. Version 1, that was my draft. This was the feedback from Claude or ChatGPT. Version 2, this is my revised draft with helpful feedback.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely a process, isn't it? I think we talked previously about it being quite scary, and anyone who says otherwise is probably not being totally honest. I think it's definitely we all need to get comfortable being uncomfortable with it and continue to learn, fail fast, move on and go again. Moving on to the brand, we've already talked about the strength of your brand. When you have a brand as famous as Compare the Market, is there ever the temptation from you or the team to assume that brand awareness alone can do most of the heavy lifting? And the second part of the question would be, what led you to invest in areas beyond the brand to fuel growth?
Yeah, I mean, it would be tempting to sit back and just relax and hope the money just rolled in off the back of the brand, but clearly that it wouldn't work like that. So, the brand is super strong. It got there over many years as it takes. It won't just stay there by itself. We need to keep burnishing it and reminding people as cohorts of new demographics come through and haven't necessarily experienced it in the way that people before had. As the brand itself and what we do evolves, we sort of re-communicate in different ways. But we're now at a place where Compare the Market, in insurance at least, has got really strong market share. It's between 45 and 50%, and the other three players are sort of relatively small. But it's been there for a while, and it will just stay there if we don't really do anything differently. And so, a couple of years ago, 4 years ago or so, when the new CEO joined, we had to look at what the new strategy needed to be to go beyond the sort of zone that we'd been in for the years prior to that. And the thing that stood out is, with our scale and the size of our data asset, that was where the opportunity would lie. So how could we use our data that had not been used before? Because previously, like I said, the brand was so strong that they were just printing money practically. But that sort of music stopped sort of 4 years ago or so, and that's where our competitive advantage is. That's stuff that other people don't have. That sort of scale, that richness, that depth. So there was a real focus to build what we call the automated quoting engine, with the simplest of experiences wrapped in a brand everyone loves. That becomes the new company vision. And so that's where we've been focusing almost all of our effort over the last 4 years or so. How do we organize our data more effectively? How do we use it in a more compelling way to encourage consumers to save money?
Yeah. You talked about market share. How do you typically measure growth?
So for growth for us, because we've seen most of the country before, so maybe we've got probably 85% of the country in our database somewhere. Growth for us is people coming back. People coming back organically, preferably, time and time again, to compare more than one product. That is what they typically do. So everyone sort of, car insurance is the biggest category, but how do we get people to come back for home insurance, for life insurance, for new categories that we're moving into, credit cards, loans, etc. So yeah, a model of repeat purchase is how we measure growth for us.
Great. Moving on to platforms, Google, for example, has become incredibly synonymous with customer interaction and engagement. I'm interested to know how that's changed, what brand growth actually means in practice at Compare the Market.
Yeah, Google is a sort of frenemy, really. It's, the the place that many consumers go as their first port of call, so we've got to be there. But equally, it's incredibly expensive for us. So if someone is searching generically for car insurance or life insurance, we feel like we've failed, right? Because at that point, we're paying tens of millions of pounds a go. We spend more on brand PPC than we do on the TV ads and media that generates the searches for that in the first place. It's crazy. It's a lot of money. Ultimately, we don't want to be reliant on Google like many brands. So for us, it's more organic preference, brand power, salience is another big measure that we use. The percentage of revenue that we get from our organic channels, those are the measures that we use to see how well we're doing in our strategy of getting less Google. It's hard because Google wants more and more, and anyone who sort of has big paid search accounts will see that the CPCs are going up. More and more of the real estate is going towards that. We're sort of fighting against the tide there, but we do as much as we can. Yeah,
absolutely. We've touched on data already, and we know how critical that is and central to growth. You've made great progress putting data at the center of everything you do around customer experience. Where do you think this can break down across the platforms or partners or brands, and what's the impact, do you think?
Yeah, for us, data quality is the big challenge, or has been the big challenge. We have almost by nature a fairly fragmented ecosystem, partly from legacy of times gone by, partly because it's a B2B business as well as a B2C business, and the data goes into us in a sort of fairly dirty fashion. It's not very clean. Then it goes to partners for them to complete the sale. Then it comes back to us in a CSV file in some cases. Very messy. So we've invested a lot into that in terms of people and resources. We've got a fairly large data governance team now, putting lots of planning and structure behind it. Data dictionaries, well organized. Because we're doing an audit as well as with yourselves to review some of those flows of data, because if we're not doing it correctly, and we know that we're not, we make poor decisions, and we make decisions that mean that we're spending money where we shouldn't be, or not enough where we should be. Yeah. That's a really big impact for us, and we've seen some really huge opportunities that have arisen from the work we're doing to solve our data quality issues. And then secondly, as we build more and more AI tools internally and use more partners for some of that stuff, they're all driven off a foundation of well-organized quality data. So we're doing a lot of work in forming our data in certain ways that allows it to be used, creating knowledge graphs and vector spaces and stuff like that. There's a huge amount of work involved in it, but it's time-consuming. It requires the right skills and capabilities. It's not something that we sort of do without the right level of focus. It's hugely important.
And it's a challenge because there's such a sheer volume of data now, isn't there? So it's making it really count and being really focused. Back to partners, what role do you think a partner should play in making data and customer experience work together, especially given platforms taking on more decision making? And for example, as you've done, using OfferFit within the Braze platform.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big believer in using partners for specialist expertise. I mean, there's so many different use cases of everything you could do with data these days, and if your first instinct is always let's do it ourselves, it's really slow, it's really expensive, time consuming. You can go to a partner. Many of them will do proof of concepts and stuff like that fairly cheaply or for nothing. And you just learn quickly. You just immediately sort of bringing in expertise that you don't have internally, and the learnings that they've already got from working with other clients. So it's a really good opportunity to do that.
Yeah, great. So what's the one thing, only one thing, you'd want our partner audience today to take away about how they can better enable modern brand growth?
I would say ask for more context from clients. So when I first actually worked with Merkle, I spent personally quite a bit of time writing out an enormous amount of context about how our business operated, how we made money, where our challenges were, beyond what you might need just for the scope of the thing that we're asking you to do. And I think that if you as a partner just ask for more of that, it just opens up so many insights into what the real challenges are and how it fits in. Because we were previously, as a business, quite tempted to give partners just a narrow scope of information that they needed, but just opening it up to a much more broad set of information meant that the responses and so on that we got were much more effective.
Yeah. So be brave in your questioning.
Yeah.
And don't assume there won't be an answer that you're happy to give.
Yeah.
Great. So we're nearly there. This thing's flashing at us both. I'm sure we started a minute late. Final question. If I gave you the power to change one thing and one thing only to help you win and win more, what would it be and why?
So I did say to you, I'd just make it up on the spot.
You did. I have no idea what you're going to say.
It's because it would be the last question. And it's really hard. And it's almost like a sort of slightly facetious answer, because if it's one thing that I could change, it's a wish, isn't it? Something that I couldn't really change in real life. Yeah. I'd just like to slow things down a bit, just for a second.
More time, yes.
Just a little bit of time. It's all moving so quickly, even for someone like me who's got the opportunity to sort of see across all of it. There's an enormous amount of change, isn't there? Yeah. Enormous amount, which is, I guess, the theme of today to some extent. But yeah, I just like a couple of weeks to just stop and catch up.
Not go on holiday.
Not go on holiday. No. I just want to stop and catch up for a second.
So what, do you think that time is about playtime, thinking time?
I think so, yeah. I think, for most of the people in this room, you spend hands-on time with the tools. More of that is hugely valuable, I think, yeah.
Couldn't agree more. So to wrap it up, what I hope our conversation has shown that brand growth in today's world isn't about having more data, more platforms, more partners. It's about making them work well together and making it feel genuinely human. Navigating change well is less about certainty, more about clarity and choosing the right people and partners to navigate that with. And when you get that right, even the incredibly complex starts to feel as easy and as human as using autosurvey. See what I did there? So thank you for joining us today, Tom. You've been incredibly open and honest, and sharing your personal perspective is much appreciated. So thank you. Thank you everyone for your time.
Pleasure.